Hey Parker Automotive fans, here we are today at Parker Automotive. It's March 13th, 2018. Today we're working on a 2009 Dodge Journey with a 3.5 motor.
Okay, so and we're doing plugs and an injector. I didn't do the diagnosis on film because I'm going to test the injector for resistance when I pull it out, but I know it's leaking, so when we go through it, we'll be able to see it. Now what it is on these vehicles, and I'm just getting this ready real quick, and then we're going to show you the other way. But what it is on this vehicle, it's a 3.5, and the intake manifold's got to come off to get to the back three spark plugs. So in that, I'm just going to basically try to give you, well, I'm just going to do the procedure. It's not as hard as what it seems. It's actually easier doing it with a lift, so you can get to the back bolts, which hold the back of the intake manifold steady, keeps it from moving all over. You know, this basically is just an upper plenum. Then there's a lower intake manifold which holds the injectors, which you'll see, and then also holds the coolant flow on the top of the block. It circulates it from head to head. So that being said, and what I did right now was I just disconnected the negative battery terminal. Both of them right here, your positive and your negative. So at this point, I'm gonna put it up in the air, and we're gonna start from the back, because I always take the two bolts that are on the back of the intake manifold off first, so that this way I don't have to worry about jumbling it around. All right, so just to let it go, we're doing, on this vehicle right here, we're actually doing a tune-up. It did have misfire. Actually, it didn't have it had a misfire, but didn't have a misfire code. It just had an injector code, which I'm going to show you up top. Testing it, it tested okay and everything. There is a resistance test on it, or you can do a injection, use the scope, and then make sure that it actually has the right format, or the right. Anyway, I'm like in a rush because I'm trying to show you this. Okay, so what this vehicle is actually getting is a tune-up, and it's also getting an injector. The injector is wet, and it's an intermittent issue with this. We're putting the air filter, PCV valve. On this vehicle, we would have done a fuel filter, but it actually is a sump screen, so it's inside the tank and it's part of the fuel pump itself. Right now, I'm going to walk you under on these right here on the back, because the intake manifold has to come off to do the back three spark plugs. They're up underneath the intake manifold. There are two brackets, support brackets, that go on the back of the intake manifold, and then they're like connected to the block, and that's where we're going to go right now. And I'll just show you real fast where they're at. So if you want to come under here, this is my wife. She's awesome.
Oh, let me pause it real quick.
All right. Well, sorry about the inconvenience or the interruption. We got our customers coming in the door. So I don't know if you can see it, but see, there's one bolt right there.
Yep.
Where the wrench is, and then up over top.
That we can't see.
That you're probably not going to be able to see, but there's another one. So what they are is, you got one that's a 13 millimeter bolt, which goes onto the intake manifold, and that does have a torque spec, so that people get this straight. It's like a 8 foot-pounds, or 105 foot-pounds, which is like almost 9 foot-pounds. I'm just going to loosen this from here. And let's see. There we go. So
And then I want to add that because you're taking off the intake manifold, we always make sure to tell our customers they have to replace that gasket.
Right, exactly.
We're not going to put on the old gasket.
Right, I don't put on the old gasket even if it's
It could cause an evap leak.
yes, especially on this. And then you got to take it all the way back apart. And also on these, and I'll show you up top, it has a EGR tube which connects to, there's one bolt. This bolt goes on to the intake. And we're gonna get this other one.
Well, our motto is fix it right the first time, and I've actually been telling some of our customers, if if you're not going to fix it right, then we don't want to do the job.
Well, what happens is if we don't do it the right way, I don't put on a new gasket, then
Then they come back. Then there's a comeback, and then they would seem to think it's our fault if they didn't want to replace it. So.
Right, and it's rubber, and it's only a couple dollars. Whenever you do this, so that's my bottom bracket. On this, I can just loosen it. That's loose. Over here, I'm gonna get this one. That top one, I'm probably gonna have to get from up top. And I'm just gonna loosen this up a little. All right, yeah, okay, so we're loose right there. Oh, and like you can see, if you look over here, can you see that it's wet at the valve cover? So they got the beginnings of a valve cover gasket leakage. No?
I don't know. Maybe.
Let me see. Let me turn this.
Maybe they probably can see it. I just can't see.
Yeah,
I got
maybe.
50-year-old eyes and don't have my
Well,
glasses.
come on this side because you can see it right here where the bracket is. Right there. If you look at the bolt for the bracket, you see how it's wet?
Okay.
Okay, so there we go. All right. Now we're going to put it down and I'm going to get that top one.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're on the back. So just in case, so you can see, these right here are your battery terminals. Yeah, try to keep it straight because if not, we're using a camera. Okay, so anyway, here's your negative battery terminal. This is your negative to the block, and this is your positive because the battery on this is actually located inside the fender well. I don't know why Chrysler does that, but it is what it is. If you come over this way, so I can just show you real fast before I start. Right here is for your brake booster hose. This right here is an evap hose. And this right here is for your EGR. This is the tube I was trying to tell you about. It's got a gasket in there, so that's got to come off. And then there's the vacuum hose in the back, which I believe is our PVC valve. I'm not sure. I got to check that out. Now, the reason why I got those two bolts from underneath is because on the back of here is where that one bracket, support bracket, is for the intake manifold. Here's the intake manifold, and right here are your 2, 4, and 6 injectors, and well, these are the coils, and this is your spark plug. So you can see they're very accessible. Underneath of here, under here is actually your spark plugs for your vehicle, for your today's one of those days. Okay, anyway, your injectors and also your coils and your spark plugs are underneath the intake manifold. Now, I already got these bolts loose, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this one that's back here, which is the lower ones are 15 millimeter, and then the upper is a 13 millimeter. So I'm just going to use a ratchet wrench to take that one off. I should be able to get it pretty easy. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to give my wife a break, and I'm going to put that camera on the stand so we can so I can do this, and hopefully you guys can see me. There we go. Yeah, it's a shame. They got this right here, this header piece. This piece right here is for the transmission for the wipers and the wiper motor, and there is a bar under here, and you can actually take this whole thing off. It just adds a lot of time to it. Okay, let me see if I get this bolt out. Okay, so now we're detached from the back, and that's really important because, you know, if you were to go to take this off and just say hypothetically they were still attached and you didn't know that they had to come off, these 3.5s, most of these Chryslers are all exactly the same. You could crack the intake manifold, which then in turn then just, you know, and you get a little tiny leak. You don't know about it, and you keep getting a misfire. You get CAT codes, O2 codes, lean codes, you know, whatever the case may be. So right now,
I'll get back up.
yeah, I'll get back to you.
Be right back.
Be right back.
BRB.
BRB. Okay, so now we're back. And we are going to take the intake manifold off. Okay, if you can make sure that I can see, or you can see me.
It looks pretty good.
Sweet. Okay, so right now on all these right here, these connector clips, these are to hold the clips in. You just kind of push it back a little bit. What I try to do is push forward, then push on the clip, and then come back. Just in case it's too hard, push it forward again, release it, and then don't dig on it, but just kind of give a little bit of a helper on there so you don't break these pigtails. These connector ends, man, are super delicate sometimes, and you don't want to break them off. So that's the best way to do it.
When you take a spark plug out, can
Yes.
you show it with my new spark plug to show
Yeah.
how I always make sure to get the, you know, OE, original equipment
Yes.
part. Like,
Yep.
of course, I'm not getting factory direct, but
Right. Sometimes it's too
this
expensive.
vehicle was made with a certain spark plug, and I'm putting in the same brand.
Yep.
So compare it.
Yep.
Show, and you can say why that's important.
Yep.
You wouldn't want to take, let's say, a vehicle that calls for AC Delco. Most GMs call for AC Delco spark plugs, but you wouldn't want to put a Champion copper in it, right?
Right. Well, you wouldn't want to put a plug in there if it's an iridium, and you want to put a copper because, you know, it's iridium burns hotter. The car runs better on that, and that's what it's made. Sometimes on these too, these ones I always have problems with, you know, because it doesn't fully release. So what you do is just get a pick, go in from behind, and then you can just kind of lift up a little bit, and it gives you enough room to pull that out. So we're off on there right now. Our battery is disconnected, or our terminals are disconnected. I'm going to go over here. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta, there we go. Another thing is, when you're doing these, sometimes what I like to do is, like I said, push them up, push them in, and then push them down. And they usually come right off. You just don't want to break off those red clips. They actually pop out, and you know, they're not really that necessary, but for real, it keeps these plugs from popping back out again. So we're off back there. There is actually supposed to be red clips that come into here. They're missing. So we're just going to use this to pop out, and pop out. Now there is a cover that goes over here, but it didn't come in with one. All right, so let's get onto this. Some of the stuff I'm taking off really isn't necessary, but when I pop this off, I'm actually going to clean the throttle plate. The throttle body cleaning. You see how much junk gets in there? And because these are electrical, I really don't like to push them in, but like you can see, See how I'm removing all that grit, you know, all that oil. If you look at this, from the pass-through, the vent for the crankcase or for the valve cover is actually sucking in oil into the filter. You know what that's usually from? Not changing your oil or over adding. You know, that's a common problem with these. Plus, you know, when you're not changing the oil, especially on these Chryslers, you don't change the oil a minute when it's supposed to be done, you actually create a big problem. You know, these are oil active, it's got oil activated, like veritable timing sensors, you know, whatever it is, it works on clean oil. So if you're always caking it up, then you got blow by happening, they start sealing off ports that aren't supposed to be sealed off, and then that's what happens. Then it starts sucking oil through the vents and everything else into the air injection, which causes this right here. Probably also they don't change their air filter as much as they should. Anyway, okay, so right now we're going to go back. I'm going to take off the vacuum lines and I'm going to take off the EGR tube. On this one, if you do it right, you take the bolts, you bring them up, I'll show you the little trick. You slide it this way so you don't have to disconnect the EGR tube from down at the bottom. You really should replace it. I mean, for this, that's all I'm doing. But anyway, so I'm going to come over to the other side and hopefully we can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to come right here a little bit. On here, right here, this right here is your knock sensor. I'm just going to unplug it just because I want to be very careful of all these wires. And I don't want to damage anything. So at this point right now, what I'm going to do is just give these a little bit of a twist. It kind of breaks any debris or buildup that's in there, and then just slowly pull them off. Check. This right here is for our brake booster. And this one right here is for our evap system. These are always a little tight. There we go. So we're off right now. I probably may replace this tube, you know, or the end. It's just a rubber connector that goes onto the plastic tube and then goes onto the intake. Sometimes after you remove them, they kind of get, you see how it's like really easily moved off. I'm probably going to replace that, which is a good idea. If the brake booster hose gets like that, sometimes what you can do is I save the extra little squeeze clamps just so I can stick them back on there. And you don't have to replace this hose. So we're just going to move this out of the way just for right now. And then I'm going to get to these two. This right here is the EGR port, which goes into the intake manifold. And these bolts right here, I believe, are 8mm. And grab one. And I gotta go all the way back. So let's see, 8mm. Let's get it quick. My eyes are getting bad. Yeah, we were off the air for a little bit, or not making videos. We actually broke what we were using to do videos, which was a Sony Xperia, and then I got really busy. So, come on, too long. Let's get in here. Take this out. And one thing I'd like to say, whenever you're putting this back on, you know, these bolts right here, they're kind of like self-tapping screws. You want to be really gentle with taking them out and putting them back in because, well, you can't re-thread it. There's no threads in there. It's just threading directly into the plastic. So when you do put these back in, you want them to go in straight. I don't really use, you can't use Loctite or anything on it, but what I do is I usually have a little bit of silicone and just wipe it around the thread. Kind of helps. So let me get a magnet. It's always good to have little trays so you can put the screws where they go. So you don't lose them. Like most mechanics, I have a little drawer of junk, which, okay, like maybe you can see it. You see these are kind of like self-tapping threads. It's just basically going into plastic. So, and this is the tube right here, and there's the O-ring. You know, it goes over to the EGR, or it goes up under and goes to the EGR. What we're going to do is we're actually going to, once I take this off, we're going to lift this up and slide it that way just a little and then pull it out. And these ones are 10s. So there's another little bracket right here which goes onto the throttle body, which is another support bracket. And I'm just going to loosen that up, or take it off. Yeah, I'll take it off. Right? Yeah, just do that. And then I'm pretty sure this is a 13 right here, which, there we go. So, and yes, I have 3/8, but I just don't feel like getting into it right now. Plus, you gotta remember, man, these screws are coming off of items that are not, that don't have to go back on very tight. I mean, these right here are literally at about, I'm almost positive, like almost 9 or 105, give or take. I'm gonna pull this throttle body off because I am gonna clean it anyway, and I got the new gasket for it. So you don't have to do that. I just feel more comfortable with putting a new, or cleaning the throttle body when I do all this type of work. It doesn't hurt anything, and really you should probably get your throttle body, I believe, your throttle plate, which I'll show you in a minute. I believe that it should be done a minimum of every 6 months. You know, or when you change your air filter, which should be, you know, every 6 to 9 months. But we're in the real world, so. And the reason why I'm crossing this is because that's the way I'm gonna put it back. Let's just get these off. Now these are also, so you understand, these ones right here are also self-tapping, because it's going into the plastic. So that's why it's very important to get all your torque specs, because you can't, over tightening these basically just destroys the destroys it. You know, now you're trying to get it taut. You know, when you're putting it back together, and if you over tighten it, then it never gets tightened. You know. So it's just plastic, and you see some of the plastic is coming off with it. You know, that's your threads basically. So you gotta be really careful. I don't know what the torque spec is on this. I'm assuming that this one is also about 8 foot-pounds. It's off, I'm just making sure. And I'll pull it. Okay, so. And like you can see, here's the gasket for the intake. anyway. Like you can see, look at the crust, the carbon buildup. The buildup on the throttle body. That's why it's always good to do a throttle body cleaning. You know, this right here, plate, is basically what happens is it centers, it seals. So what happens is it's got a relative plate position, you know, like for your TPMS or your accelerator pedal position sensor. It delegates based on this being at 0. And then it does the idle and everything. When this can't fully seat, then you get drivability issues like, you know, weird miss at idle, whatever it may be. So I'm gonna get rid of this. And now we're going to come over to disconnecting the intake itself. I probably should have read the directions on it. That's another thing you should always do. You know, whenever you're doing work like this, you really want to make sure that you know the procedure. I've done enough of them that I don't really have to. Just give me one moment. So usually, I didn't look up the deal yet, so just I gotta make sure I'm doing this right. So it should be 1, 2, 4, 6, 7. And make sure I don't have no back bolts in here. Make sure. Yep. Up. There we go. I have one back here, I think. Let's get a little mirror. Man. I'm looking for mirrors.
Are all your mirrors down in the other box?
Okay, if you can go check. Okay, so I'm looking for a mirror because I can't find one right now. And I just got to make sure I don't got a bolt back here. This is probably the tightening sequence. It'll be this way.
Keep this one down here.
That'll be 3. Okay. 4. Thank you. 6. 7. So let's make sure. Okay, so you got that off. Sometimes what you can do is you kind of bring these up and then you let them screw into the intake itself. And see, then it holds it up and then you don't have to have it dragging or anything like that when you're trying to pull it out. You know, so there's nothing holding it so you can slide it over. I mean, that's what I do. So we do have another vacuum line right here. And I'm going to pop it off. Okay, there we go. All right, so that's off. Now, obviously there's nothing in there. Right? Nope. And make sure we don't have anything in the back, which I'm pretty sure I know we don't. All right. some guy said I was mumbling. I'll try not to mumble. I think that's part of my character. Okay, hold on a second. Let's see. Here, there. Make sure I don't got nothing held up. That's off in the back. Yep. Get that out of the way slightly so I can make sure. Yeah, that's my PVC valve. PCV. Make sure I'm saying it correctly. And this is why you probably should, in some cases, disconnect the EGR from the back. But you can sometimes give it a little bit of a pull. Get it out. Make sure. Oh, I'll get this out of here. And you know, normally you can get away with not pulling this all the way out, but I got to do an injector too while we're in here. Alright, so I'm going to pause this, maybe. Okay, so now lift up and over. What is that, man? Make sure. Man, is that bracket in the back holding it? Ugh. I might have to. EGR. Ugh. I'm gonna loosen it up. So.